Redline Logbook here for D. Gray Man's Invasion of the Black Order Arc Part 2. And we're starting off where we left off with the birth of a level 4. And when Alan looks at it for the first time, we actually don't get to see what the soul of the Akuma looks like. Because every time an Akuma evolves, the soul becomes more and more twisted and destroyed and tortured by the Akuma. But whatever Alan sees at this moment, because like I said, we don't see it, is so horrific. The soul is so tortured and twisted that it causes Alan to vomit. Johnny then crawls over to Alan, begging to be helped, begging for Alan to help everyone. And when Alan looks, he sees that there's just this giant pile of blood and gore with all of the scientists just lying about it, showing that this thing just massacred everyone. Alan puts his hand on Johnny's hand and calms him down. And the Akuma asked everyone, "Who is that?" Because it doesn't understand, I guess. And this, of course, leads Alan to fly into an absolute rage and attack the level 4. It's actually deflecting all of Alan's attacks, and then it starts to think to itself, like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm an Akuma, and I'm in the headquarters of the Black Order, which basically means that when it evolved to a level 4, its memory got all fuzzy and hazy, and it actually starts to put 2 and 2 together, realizing and remembering that it's a weapon of slaughter. Its purpose is to kill people. And so it then goes, okay, well, then I guess I'll do my job. I'll kill everyone in the Black Order. Alan yells to Bookman to try to help all the injured people with his needles, while in the meantime he continues to attack the level 4. But this thing is powerful. It casually dodges all of Alan's attacks, and with a single flick of its finger, it sends Alan flying. The impact is so hard, it knocks Alan out of Crown Clown. Bookman is watching this fight go on, but what matters to him is the fact that this is a level 4. Apparently, it has never been recorded in Bookman history, the existence of a level 4, which means this is the first time that both the Bookmans and the Black Order have ever encountered a level 4. Bookman theorizes this actually might be the final form of the Akuma because it's so human-like. It actually looks like an actual human being. It's horrific to look at, but yes, in the end it is technically humanoid. With Alan defeated, it then decides it wants to just start slaughtering innocent people, as it said before. It screams so loud that it even brings generals to their knees. And then it immediately goes after the scientist that General Theodore is protecting. Fortunately, his giant plant things are protecting them, but still, it is trying to actually break through the general's art to kill the scientists. It doesn't even care about the exorcists. This is just straight murderous intent, wanting to go after the weakest and most defenseless first. While it doesn't break through the general's defense, it does shatter the ground and cause everything to break apart and fall. Everything just starts collapsing. Fortunately for Alan, he's saved by Link, who stops the rubble from crushing him. But when the two look out to where everyone else was, all they see is a gaping hole of fire, and literally everyone is gone, including the generals. Everyone is presumed dead after this moment, obviously, including by the Akuma, who then flies over to the skulls who are trapped in the talisman. They ask the Akuma to free them, because it should easily be able to break the talisman, and the Akuma straight up just kills all of them. Like I said before, this thing, its entire personality is to slaughter and to murder whatever it can. It doesn't care if it's ally or enemy. It just wants to kill. It is the embodiment of just pure evil. Obviously, it's taking great glee and happiness in the fact that it's just killing even its own allies. Alan is disgusted. But the Akuma, of course, then sense there are more humans nearby, and so it decides it's going to go after them, and Alan is just screaming for it to stop. All the fighting must have caused the power in the entire Black Order to go out, because when we go over to Lena Lee's group, which is in the nurse's office, it's pitch black, and the only one who has any form of light is the head nurse with a little candle. Her first priority is to get over to Lena Lee and Robbie to see how they're doing. Robbie has a small cut on his arm. He says no big deal, but she does not tolerate that. She wants to patch him up as quickly as possible. She then notices there's broken glass on the ground, takes off her shoes, and gives them to Lena Lee. Obviously, Lena Lee tries to refuse this, but the head nurse is not taking it from either of them. She is going to make sure that these two are kept safe and well. The head nurse then asked Lena Lee, did she not put her shoes on when she left her room? And Lena Lee's response is, I was going to Hirbaska to have my innocence implanted inside of me. And then Lena Lee starts crying because she doesn't want to have to keep fighting. She doesn't want to be a part of this war anymore. And she doesn't want her brother to be sad anymore. The head nurse tells her that, well, you don't have to put the innocence inside of you. You don't have to do this. And Lena Lee's response is, this is the only thing I can do. This is the only thing that I'm able to do to help. I don't want to die. I don't want anyone else to die. I just want to live with my brother and everyone else. She just breaks down even further as the head nurse tries to hold her and comfort her. And she declares that she hates innocence. Why do her and her brother have to suffer like this? An announcement is then made over the speakers declaring that the lab has been annihilated, all the extras have gone missing, and a level 4 is currently rampaging through the Black Order. And yes, the level 4 is just flying through, slaughtering everyone it sees. Two of the men tell Kamui to get moving, run away, because he's the head officer, he needs to be safe. And they try to protect him, but the Akuma apparently overhears this, goes in, fucking decapitates both of the men that were trying to protect Kamui, and just walks up to him. Level 4 actually asks Kamui, if you're a head officer, that means you're as valuable as an exorcist, right? And he actually starts to claw at Kamui's shoulder when Kanda comes and saves him. Unfortunately, Kanda doesn't have his innocence, and so the sword he uses just shatters as soon as it hits the Akuma. But Kanda's not dumb, he realizes it's going to happen, so he carries multiple swords with him. That's when at least 20 men show up with talismans, and then starts creating a multiple layered cube to trap the level 4. The level 4 then starts to laugh maniacally, making everyone realize that it can just break out anytime it wants. Hibasuka then uses the radio to contact Kamui, telling him that she's going to sacrifice herself. She's going to have him take all of the innocents and then flee to the Ark and go to the Asian branch, and then have the Akuma attack and kill her while he escapes. Kamui is against this, but she points out that she isn't really necessary for the survival of the Order. The innocence is, so as long as Kamui gets away with all of it, that's all that matters. McCullum, on the other hand, demands that they use Lena Lee's power. Hibasuka is completely against this, saying that exorcists are not tools to be used, but Maxwell doesn't seem to care. He barges into the medical ward and he demands that Lena Lee come with him. Kamui then makes an announcement across the entire Black Order, ordering everyone inside to evacuate. They're abandoning the Black Order. McCullen, still trying to get Lena Lee to listen, says, "Did you hear that? We're going to use Hibasuka as a decoy. So if you don't want her to die, you should come with me and get your innocence back." He grabs her arm, but of course, she's traumatized by this man, and she instinctively just pulls away. He then starts screaming at her, saying, "Did you not hear the report just now? There's an Akuma. You're an Exus. Your job is to kill them." And that's when Robbie just grabs McCullum. The head nurse then demands that he go away because they were ordered to evacuate. But McCullum's response is, "Exorcists belong to the church. They're the personal soldiers of the Pope, and he can order her to do whatever he wants. He does not care." What Kamui says. If her innocence really is evolving, then it should be strong enough to kill level 4. He then reminds them that there's no point in all of them protecting Lena Lee, because in the end, only innocents can kill an Akuma. And so for anyone to survive, the extras have to fight. Lena Lee then takes off the head nurse's shoes and starts to follow McCullen. Obviously, the head nurse tries to stop her, but her response is simple. The day that her brother joined the Black Order is the day that she decided to stop running away, because now he was trapped here, and she felt that it was her fault that he was now stuck in the Black Order, and she was going to have to take responsibility and become an exorcist. Robbie then follows behind because he just wants to be there for Lena Lee, but at the same time, he has the job to do as Bookman Jr. Hibasuka then starts to yell at Kamui, telling him he needs to hurry because McCullum is bringing Lena Lee to her, and if he doesn't get there now, she'll have to implant Lena Lee's innocence inside of her. The level 4 finally stops laughing and declares that the executive isn't going to escape, so he's going straight for Kamui. Kamui, Kanda, and a few others get onto the elevator and start going down to Hibasuka, and the Akuma decides to turn this into a game of tag, and he says he gives the supervisor 10 seconds. Back with Lena Lee, apparently they went into the elevator, but because of the massive destruction of level 4, the thing almost falls straight to the bottom. It barely stops before hitting the ground, killing her, Revy, and McCullen. But that also means that they got to the bottom real fast. McCullen is not happy that Robbie's there, but he can't really stop him since the church has an agreement with the bookmen to let them get their recording. But he hates the bookmen. He sees them as hyenas that just go to battlefield. Lena Lee then tries talking to Robbie, but he's like, "Don't worry, I'm not here to stop you. You've already made up your mind." He just wants to be there for her. McCullen then orders Hibasuka to put the innocent side of Lena Lee. Hibasuka, of course, is like, "No, we're not going to do that," because... And then McCullen's like, "Lena Lee volunteered to do this herself. Plus, she knows about the experiments we did in the past, so she knows what the result could be, becoming a fallen." Hibasuka didn't know Lena Lee knew that, and is actually quite surprised, and is trying to stop this from happening. She even says, "Lena Lee is our ally." But McCullen just cuts her off on that and says, "Ally? You have obediently followed orders for 100 years. This is no different than what you did to your own kin." And that's when Hibasuka gets a flashback to when McCullen was a child, and McCullen tells Hibasuka that she's no saint, she's a murderer of her own blood. Lena Lee then asks, "What does McCullen mean?" He chokes up his voice a bit and says, "Doesn't matter. Guess he doesn't want Lena Lee to know this, but Robbie knows it because he's a bookman. So, 100 years ago, Havaska was a simple girl who was part of the Levery family, and she was offered up by her family to the church to become a saint, basically the guardian of all innocence. And after this, the Levery family got high status within the church, but also basically became its property. And from then on out, the Leverly family for 100 years had to offer up its family members for experimentation, which means the child that Lena Lee saw get turned into a Fallen was most likely related to McCullen and Havaska. Robbie then asks McCullen, "Why are you here?" And McCullen's confused, like, "What do you mean? Like, why are you here? What is your purpose for doing this?" And McCullen's response is, what everyone's purpose is, to defeat the Earl. And the next thing anyone hears is the level 4 say 0, and in an instant, it just shatters the talisman barrier and flies straight at Kamui on the elevator, shattering the elevator. The whole elevator, with everyone on it, just crashes to the ground, explodes in flames, Lena Lee screaming for her brother. Robbie then rushes over to see if he can help anyone. McCullum then says, with the elevator destroyed, there's no way to get away with the innocence, so Havaska has no choice. She has to give Lena Lee her innocence. It's the only way now. At the site of the crash, Kamui is actually alive because Kanda uses his own body's shield against the level 4. His arm is pretty fucked up, but like always, he can regenerate. As for the two finders that were with them, they slowly crumble to dust because they're not immune to Akuma poison. The level 4 then shows up saying, "Hey, is our game of tag already over?" And so now Kanda and Robbie have to fight this thing without innocence. Lena Lee then gives Havaska a very sad smile and tells her to do it. But right before Havaska places the innocence into Lena Lee's body, she then blasted from the back from the Akuma. Yeah, so without their innocence, plus this is a level 4, both Robbie and Kanda were just defeated instantly. Havaska then falls to the ground, collapses. Lena Lee also gets hit in the explosion from the attack, and so she's bleeding from her head. She's all woozy as she tries to reach out for her innocence when the Akuma decides to then come for her. It actually just steps on her head, basically planning on just crushing her. And the only thought going through Lena Lee's head is, please God that I hate so much, for the first time in my life, grant me the power of innocence. While in her nearly unconscious state, Lena Lee starts to have a hallucination where she wakes up in her bed, where the war with the Akuma and the Earl and all that was completely a dream. And in reality, she's still back in China living with her brother. But she knows this is just a dream, and she's desperately still trying to get to her innocence. Like always, the Akuma are quite cruel, and they actually want Lena Lee to look at her before he steps on her head. Fortunately, this sadistic side of the Akuma allows enough time for Alan to rejoin the fight and attack the level 4, starting a round 2 between Alan and the level 4. But as before, Alan is quickly overpowered and launched to the ground again. Kanda runs over to him, realizes Alan is just covered in wounds, and is wondering how the hell is he still able to fight. That's when Alan stands in a very awkward and weird way that makes Kanda realize Alan is being basically partially puppeted by his innocence. Kanda then notices Lena Lee reaching towards her innocence. Of course, he doesn't want that, and Robbie tells him that he should go to her. She's doing this for you. And Kanda knows that, and he's always been quite sad about it ever since. And so he starts to hesitate to go to Lena Lee. That's when Kanda kicks Kamui in the back and asks him, why did you come to the order? Forcing Kamui to remember he did it for Lena Lee. He worked his way up to becoming a supervisor, the head of the European branch, because he wanted to be with his sister. And so this finally gets Kamui to run to his sister, where he finally mixed her as she mixed to her innocence. The innocence then turns into a black liquid. She smiles at her brother, says, I'm off, and then drinks the innocence. Both McCullum and Kamui are surprised by this because you don't drink innocence. This is just weird. This doesn't make sense. But then things start to happen. Scars in the shape of crosses explode on Lena Lee's ankles, and she begins to bleed uncontrollably. McCullum believes that this is her body rejecting the innocence and failing, but that's not what's happening. Before McCullum can even make it to Lena Lee to see what's happening, that is when the level 4 decides to attack him. Alan gets in the way and blocks the energy blast. It's beginning to overpower him when Robbie and Kanda decide to help out. They're able to neutralize the energy blast, but it's still an energy blast, so it explodes. This then gives McCullen a chance to then order Havaska to check out Lena Lee. McCullen and Kamui then explain what happened with the innocence, liquefying and then being drunken by Lena Lee. And as Havaska examines Lena Lee's body, she then says that the innocence is gone. It's no longer inside of her. This, of course, doesn't make sense to any of them. That is, until they see all the blood that's spewed out of Lena Lee's ankles starts to form into a semi-angel looking thing, revealing that her innocence became part of her blood. It then partially exited her body, so it can then form into new black boots, made from Lena Lee's blood. Lena Lee then asked if the innocence has finally accepted her resolve, and apparently it has, because it fuses to her legs. And so with this new evolved innocence, her dark boots, which is right on time, because Alan is about to be killed. And in an instant, faster than even the level 4 could see, Lena Lee just appears on top of the level 4. Level 4 doesn't seem to care. It then immediately shoots one of its energy blasts at both her and Alan. But Lena Lee is so fast, she grabs Alan and then jumps basically to the ceiling. Remember, they're in the lowest floor where Habaska lives. An elevator is required to get here. And Lena Lee cleared the distance instantly. And when I say no one was able to track her, I mean no one. Not even Alan, who was in her arms when this happened. It even caused him to feel nauseous. This hasn't happened since she pushed her innocence to its max when she was able to move at the speed of sound. But right now, she is just casually speed blitzing even that. So Lena Lee now is faster than she's ever been. Alan then apologizes to her because he wasn't able to save everyone like he promised he would. The two then let go of each other, so this way Alan can get around using Clown Crown. At the same time, the level 4 then attacks, and it and Lena Lee are basically keeping up with one another. This makes McCullen excited because he now sees that Lena Lee is on par with level 4, which is a massive power boost in her regard. But Kamui's a little more realistic. He sees that Lena Lee just got her boots on, and she isn't actually adjusted to its speed just yet, and Alan is heavily wounded. Alan is able to then pin down the Akuma with his sword, trying to go through its stomach, but once again, heavily injured, and it's trying to overpower him. But even though he can't push the sword through, he just has to hold it still, because that's when Lena Lee decides to jump straight to the ceiling. The Akuma realizes what's about to happen, starts to force the sword off of his stomach, and Alan really was about to be overpowered at this moment, but then a lullaby starts to sing, and the Akuma is partially paralyzed. This then gives Lena Lee enough time to rocket down, stomping on the sword, cutting the Akuma in half. And yes, the lullaby did come from General Cross. He then appears with his zombie woman, completely unharmed, grinning like he always does. He informs Kamui that the evacuation is off, and he's going to take this level 4 as research material. Next thing Kamui hears is River talking on the radio. So yeah, when the level 4 attacked and caused the whole area to collapse, the Exorcists, including Miranda and General Theodore, were able to save everyone. But now they're completely surrounded by fire, and so they're asking Kamui to send in help to put the fire out so they can be rescued. Of course, now that everything is starting to get under control, Kamui has to go back to the command center to be in charge, put everything around, so he leaves Cross in charge of taking care of Lena Lee, Alan, pretty much everything that's happening right here. And of course, Alan and Lena Lee are happy that all of their friends are still alive. The level 4, apparently still alive, starts freaking out, and is actually able to force Alan off of him, throwing the sword away. It is basically cut in half at this point. It is just cracking apart and is trying to hold itself together. And yet it still has the nerve to talk like it's the one in control at the moment. Cross then jumps down, shoots a round at it. The level 4 is actually able to stop one of Cross's bullets and starts gloating again. But then Cross says, "Oh, so you only saw one." And next thing it realized its entire body is just covered in holes. And because each of those bullets are made of innocence, its body starts reacting. It starts bulging, and it's about to explode, basically. Finally realizing it's lost, it decides to fly away. Alan uses Clown Crown to wrap it up, try to hold it back, but that's not really necessary because the other two generals are above it. And so at that moment, the level 4 finally realizes it lost completely, and there's nothing it can do. Lena Lee and Alan just jump at it and just rip it apart. The only thing that remains of the level 4 is its head, which then falls down next to Cross, and it once again starts running its mouth. You shouldn't be celebrating the fact that you kill someone as weak as me. Cross then pretends to sneeze and accidentally, in quotation marks, shoot its head and blows it up. He then says, "Oh, my bad. I was planning on doing research on you." The rescue teams are finally able to put out the fires and get to the wounded. Miranda is on the verge of collapse. Like, she was giving it all she had to keep that area stable. But the survivors have been confirmed. You got River, you got Bach, you got Johnny. Robbie's also grateful that Bookman survived. And it's all said and done, Alan finally collapses from exhaustion and insane injuries. Lena Lee runs over to some medics asking for help. When she just collapses, her innocence disappears, and what's left are these rings around her ankles made of her own blood. The one who comes to Alan's aid in the end is actually Link, saying that the others are too busy and it's his job to take care of Alan anyway. Alan asks what happened to everyone in the lab. He informs them that they should be able to survive. Well, at least the humans, the skulls on the other hand. And that's when we go over to Johnny, who's currently holding a skull that used to be Top, and he's crying, begging him not to die, not to die. And the Top skull actually remembers what it was like to be human, and he remembers all the extra overtime he used to do. And his last words were, "I'd happily do all the overtime in the world if I didn't have to die right now." And then he finally turns to dust, surrounded by the rest of the science team, bawling their eyes out. And so when all this chaos is finally put to bed, McCullum and Cross finally have a proper meeting, where Cross says, "Okay, I'll tell you everything about the 14th, but you gotta let me talk to my apprentice." The next day, the two of them then basically leave together. Link stays behind because he has to watch over Alan. And they were actually able to do a proper counting of the dead. Science Division lost over half of its members, and other departments also had major losses. It was, without a doubt, the worst incident the Order has faced in the last 100 years. As you can imagine, everyone's injured and beaten up, but Alan decided he needs to train to use a sword properly, and so he convinces Konda to actually train him. Konda points out that he's a poor swordsman, but then Alan decides to fight dirty. Now, this, of course, disgusts Konda, but Alan, well, he was a street kid. That's how he grew up. Fighting dirty has always been natural to Alan. And so this training turned into just one of their brawls again. When the two are done beating each other up, all the extras are then called to the science room, where they will be explained what happened to Lena Lee's innocence. Now, at first, the original thought that her innocence might be turning into a paramecia type, where the innocence literally fuses to one's DNA and just mutates a part of your body, like Alan's arm or Crowley's teeth. But that's not what happened to Lena Lee. What happened here is that it infused itself with her blood, then left her body, and then transformed into an unknown metal. And so instead of being a paramecia type, it's just an evolved form of an equipment type. And the fact that it's made from the user's blood actually makes it easier for the user to control and manipulate. They can do it just by instinct. They don't actually have to think about it. And they decided to name this new type of innocence Crystal Innocence. The problem is they are unsure whether or not if this will shorten Lena Lee's life like a paramecia type will. But it does show the innocence is evolving to make its host stronger, which makes perfect sense because the final war is coming. After this meeting, Bookman then tells Robbie that if there's ever signs that he might be developing a crystal type innocence, they have to leave. And there's also something else that the extras are beginning to realize, that the Earl could have killed the Order 100 years ago. Hell, he could do it right now if he felt like it. They're just not strong enough. But for some reason, he's just letting them live. Why is he doing that? It's unclear. Bookman, being Bookman's sole plan, is just to let it wait and see what the Earl does to understand the truth. That's when we go to this ball that's happening in some European country with a bunch of noblemen, and amongst them is Tiki Meek. Yeah, he's no longer a monster. And this party he's at is just a normal party for the elite of Europe. He talks to an ordinary woman who mentions that she would like to see the Earl sometime, so apparently the Millennium Earl has connections in the upper crust of society, and the Noah are just connected to all these people. And we actually continue on with the Noah in their day-to-day lives, apparently, as we go into the next day, where the Earl, who doesn't look like the Earl anymore, he looks like a normal human, but we actually don't get to see his face. It's constantly silhouetted. And Tiki Meek visiting Rode and another Noah called Shirley, but it's a man. So apparently Shirley decided to marry a normal woman, but she's sickly, so he can basically just keep her under control. And he did this so this way he could adopt Rode as his daughter, because apparently Shirley likes to play house where Rode is his daughter. And he tries to convince Tiki Meek to do something similar with his life. Yeah, this new Noah is kind of weird. And I'm not the only one who feels that way. Tiki Meek straight up calls this guy creepy, which he is. Rode, playing the part of a little girl and a brat, runs over to Tiki Meek and starts punching him in the gut, basically yelling about something stupid that doesn't matter. So this way she can whisper to him if his wound from Alan still hurts. He tries to tell her he's fine, but it's clear he's in pain. Rode's mother, and I put that in quotation marks, Tristia, runs up and basically tries to stop her from beating up her uncle. She apologizes to Tiki Meek, but he says, no, it's fine, but you are looking pale. Now, he's saying this because partially she's apparently a very sickly woman, but also he wants to remove any of the humans from the conversation they're about to have. Shirley says he'll take care of Rode while she gets some rest. She then apologizes to the Earl for leaving early, and her and the maid just disappear. They start to discuss the attack on the Order, where they try to get back the egg. Apparently, Lulu Bell was crying her eyes out the fact that it got destroyed by Alan, and the Earl says, I don't really care, I can always just make a new one. I just didn't want the Order to figure out what the egg actually is. They just believe that the Akuma are weapons of slaughter, and he doesn't want them to actually figure out what the Akuma really are. And we kind of learn why the Earl allows the Order to exist, and it's because of the heart. Basically, he's been attacking the generals because, one, he would like to find the heart, and maybe they have it, but even if they don't, that doesn't matter, because it will cause the Order to then look for the heart themselves, which will eventually lead to someone finding it, and that's when the Earl will be able to make his final move. They ask if they think Lena Lee or Alan's innocence is the heart, and the Earl says, "No, I don't think that is. I think the heart is actually just trying to make decoys to trick us. The real concern is the 14th. Shirley then asks, what did the 14th do? Why did he betray us? Because apparently none of them were awake at the time, only the Earl and Rode. And Rode's response was, the 14th tried to kill the Millennium Earl. The Earl then says he's been having dreams ever since he learned that Alan Walker was connected to the 14th. And he's remembering the time when he first met Alan as a child after Mana died. And he wonders, why didn't he just kill them back then? What happened? So there's a part of the Earl's memory that's just fractured at that moment, and he just can't figure it out. Another time jump to a meeting between two countries who are trying to create peace. Among them is Shirley, who's apparently the minister for one country, and another guy who's a minister of another. They're about to sign a peace treaty when the minister of the other country stands up, pulls out a gun, and tries to kill Shirley. He ends up killing one of Shirley's men. Obviously, the minister of the other country is an Akuma, and this whole thing was a setup to start a war. So this way, more people will die, which will then lead to more grief, which will then lead to more Akuma. And the last scene we have for this arc is the Duke walking in the rain, basically talking to people on the street. And Tikimik points out that the Duke is just a human being, which is one of the hints that show that the Duke is different from the Noah in some way. And that is the end of this arc. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe, give it a thumbs up so you can enjoy more D. Gray Man and other amazing things. Thank you, and have a great day.